Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining Discover the SDGs, convened by the Conscious Fashion Campaign in collaboration with the United Nations Office for Partnerships. I'm Dominic-Madori Davis, an executive lifestyle reporter at Business Insider, where I cover luxury and all things Generation Z. For today's session, The Future of Work is Now, Views from the Fashion Industry. I'm joined by Sedef, Uncu, Director of Sales, Marketing, R&D, and Product Development at Orta, Stephanie Benedetto, CEO and co-founder of Queen of Raw, and Chrissy Rutherford, influencer and brand consultant at B2BG Consulting. Today, we focus on how the world of work is changing. Digitalization and globalisation have sparked significant shifts in how we live, work, and the COVID-19 crisis has only accelerated these changes beyond anything any of us could have ever imagined, which is why we're all here today, to discuss the possibilities of where the future of work may be headed amid these uncertain and changing times. But before we begin, I'd like to ask each of my panelists to give a brief introduction of their work.
I'm the director at Orta, founded in 1953. Orta is one of the well-known denim fabric producers in the world. We are pioneers in sustainability. Our journey started in the beginning of 2000s, and in 2010, we founded our sustainability platform called Orta Blue. You can reach it at ortablue.org. Nowadays, we are discussing the next chapter in sustainability. We are planning a future for all fashion industry. What will be the next chapter for us, and how will the denim evolve? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Benedetto, and I'm the Queen of Raw. We are on a mission to turn the world's pollution into profit. I actually come from a family background of over 100 years in fashion and textiles. So this industry is very much in my blood. Always loved how powerful it was, but just disliked all the waste it produced and believed there had to be a better way. So we built Queen of Raw as a global marketplace. So anyone from a student maker, crafter, quilter to the biggest brands and retailers in the world can buy and sell their unused textiles, keep them out of landfill, and turn what would be pollution into profit. And we're really excited now, as we've been growing the marketplace, to also be able to map, measure, and trace the actual waste. And we can deliver in real time data like the amount of water, toxins, energy, and dollars saved by the buying and selling of the textiles, and we map it to the SDGs. So excited to be growing globally and help save all that water.
And I'm Chrissy Rutherford. I spent the last 10 years working in fashion editorial. I worked at harpersbazaar.com as an editor for the last 8.5 years. I just left earlier this year. And, I really did everything as a digital editor, from writing, helping to produce shoots, styling celebrities, doing interviews, booking talent, all of that. And then I took a break this year. Up until June, I co-founded 2BG Consulting with a fellow editor, Danielle Prescott, and we focus on helping brands to become anti-racist. We do direct consulting with brands, as well as we teach an anti-racism workshop with influencers, brands, and other industry professionals to really help give them the tools they need to be crafting anti-racist identities.
And so now we will jump right into things. And so the first question is kind of two parts. From where everyone is standing in the industry, how has the pandemic impacted the way everyone is working right now within fashion? And within that, what are some unique ways or innovations that you guys have seen businesses and entrepreneurs implement to get through this time?
I think it goes without saying, right, that the pandemic has obviously had a massive impact on all of us personally and also professionally. And if any good can come out of what's going on in the world right now, right, it's that everyone has woken up to these issues and realized that we need to do better, and we need to build business solutions that truly make sense for people, for planet, but also for businesses' profit. And so despite the negatives of what's going on in the world, especially in fashion, retail, and apparel, I think that brings with it a huge opportunity for us to do better and build for that future supply chain. And we're all thinking about it, right? And talking about it. What does it look like to be more on demand more local, more sustainable, and more digital. And so it's kind of forced the hand for a lot of big corporations to innovate or die. And I think that, you know, for us and for our business, we've seen huge uptick in especially our work with enterprise customers. So we've been growing through the pandemic drastically. And I think that that's a good sign. It's a sign that for other entrepreneurs and people innovating in this space, opportunities to leverage technology, to build new business models, and the appetite and reception for the fashion industry to adopt that, it's coming quicker than we would have expected, and maybe would have happened if not for the pandemic. So that's kind of what we've been seeing. And obviously it's sped up for on our end some of the technology that we implement and do. And that's where we get to leverage some fun tools like blockchain and machine learning, which we can get into, but I think that that's a big part of connecting the dots digitally for the future, for all of us to communicate and for supply chains to connect.
Yeah, I think, you know, this industry was really upended like in two ways this year, of course, because of COVID, and then the social justice uprising, you know, that we saw this summer. So I think people have really had to reckon with like who they are, what their brand stands for. You know, it really seems like everything has been toppled over in order to be built back, hopefully stronger. And we've been forced to address issues that have been issues long before this year even started, you know, excessive waste from runway shows, editors traveling all over the world constantly, even just, you know, in New York, having to run around constantly to market appointments. And now I can view a collection from my own home. And actually it's so much more intimate because now you get to have real face time with brand, you know, with a designer, with buyers, whatever it may be. And so, you know, I think we've also seen designers get really creative around how do we replace the fashion show in a digital age. Hanifa did that incredible 3D runway show this summer. And obviously our industry is known for being creative, and it's really pushed a lot of people. Even, you know, brands can't do photo shoots, and now people have to make do with very little. And how can we just shoot a collection in our home or in our town, or, you know, whatever is safest at this time?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, people are now talking about the new normal, and I'm asking to myself, was the world normal before pandemic? It's just no doubt what we're really experiencing is catapulting the transition to more remote work and remote life. The COVID has given us a woke moment, and you all share the same. And we mean this on like several levels, like the way we live, the way we work, the way we consume is not sustainable anymore. And we realize that. Maybe the definition of sustainability will change, but although in theory focusing on the human factor and environment have the same importance, and the ones that didn't turn it to the practice will be distinguished by the customers easily. We can see it right now. Pre-COVID times, we were already talking about seasonal styles in fashion, innovative capsules with no seasonal focus, and like long-lasting, durable, beautiful fabrics with eco-conscious materials and like increased circularity and transparency. And this was a need for the eco-modern generation, and we were seeing it. This pandemic really accelerated it, and I'm really happy about this. It also brought attention to health and safety as well, like antiviral, antibacterial applications on all fashion items, including denim. We see it like more often right now. During this last year, a lot has changed, and the changes were very sudden on the consumer behavior as well. Consumers are now looking for better connections with the products that they're buying. They're looking for a purpose. Purpose is a new luxury. We all see it around. Purpose will create the value that the customers and consumers are looking for. So brands should fulfill the value statement, because consumers will distinguish it really fast. And if we create sustainable fashion, we must design products that celebrate aging, the dirt, the tear on it. Isn't that the denim itself? We are really low in terms of denim. I really would like to ask that question.
And just to follow up with you on that, in terms of how the consumer needs and desires have changed during this time, and you spoke about how the industry needs to fall in love with aging, right? So from a marketing standpoint, what are some different strategies that you've been preparing to implement for the future?
As we look, as we look kind of towards the future and the change and shifts that are going on in consumer behavior, there's a lot of opportunity here. There's a lot people are doing, and there's a lot of things that we're just starting to see and unlock and harness the power of technology and communication. One thing I think is really interesting about social media is that it makes us all obviously be able to, in real time, comment on what's going on in the world, share a point of view. And if there are any bad acts going on, we immediately kind of all jump in and become watchdogs. And that, that word, I don't mean it to have a negative connotation, because it means we can all support each other, democratize this, give access, promote diversity in ways we probably couldn't before. And you can still do it from your home, right? Even if you can't be in stores and out in the streets and at shows. So I think that ability to create and consume information from your home with information readily available at your fingertips is very powerful. What we've spent a lot of time doing is how can we educate our consumers about the value that they get by leveraging and buying and using dead stock, right? Unused waste and unused inventory, and tell them at the point of sale. So now if you make a purchase out of a lot of these platforms like ours or ThreadUp or The RealReal or Poshmark or Depop, right? You can know with the product that you pick, the amount of water, toxins, and energy you've just saved and contributed by purchasing that shirt. And you can feel connection with that story and with being a part of a world solution, right? And solving the world's problems. And I always hear as damaging as fashion is to obviously our water and our people and our planet, it also means it has the power to solve things like the world's water crisis, and we can all contribute to that. So I think the way we think about our engagement with what's touching our body 24/7, what it's made of, where it comes from, and then in another exciting way, where it actually goes to when we're ready to consign it or recycle it or at end of life. So I think that's where some really cool technology is coming to support that.
Good.
And
Can I? Okay. Well, in denim, what we do is actually a really hands-on business. It used to be. You are really touching the fabric, feeling the fabric, stretching the fabric, and trying to decide. And to marketing, when you think about like sales and marketing, we used to travel a lot to the customers, mainly by plane, sometimes by car, but to sell them like the fabrics that we're showing. And we used to have an immense footprint in that sense as well. And we were creating a lot of samples like washes, garments to really show how you can wash the denim fabric. And like once the decision is made, most of them are lost in the chain and maybe they're throwing it in the garbage, like donating it hopefully. But really like the amount of like water, energy, chemicals, like raw material that is put in the fabric itself, like the samples itself, and also the time that we are putting itself was immense. So in that sense, the pandemic really, we realized, we were always talking about digitalization, but we suddenly realized that we can do it really fast. Like in like a day, we switched to Zoom meetings, as Chrissy said. It was really so nice to feel connected and more focused on what we're talking about. But in our case, it was a little bit different because we need to touch the fabric. That was the idea. So what we have created as Orta is we created a gallery we called Orta Gallery. We put our like high resolution photos of our washes, like different levels of washes on that website. And we also created a kit that people can have like small swatches, not like big full garments, but small swatches with the wash downs. And also on the kit, there are like the main QR codes that you can reach the life cycle assessment of the fabrics that we're talking about and the stories, the trends that we're talking about. So that kit with Orta Gallery was the first step in digitalization of our sales and marketing. And it really got a good interest from the customers itself. So it was really nice. And we thought as Orta that we need to build resilient thinking. We need to reassess the processes that we have, the products that we have, the way that we're doing the business, so that we can be ready for the unforeseen forces that we see right now. And to reduce the denim industry's footprint and to contribute towards the biodiversity loss, we always thought about alternative materials and alternative processes. And we are now digging the regenerative, biological and sustainable futures, biological materials, if we can use them or not. So that's one point that we're looking after. New biodesign technologies, such as creating dyes out of food waste, for example, we've done that. And we have supported a group called Biodesign Challenge, a global student competition for new biodesign solutions. It was really very interesting to see the projects that the students came up with. We recently created a standard. We call it golden ratio, and Stephanie, that's also related to what you're doing as well, because okay, recycled material and using them is really important, but there should be a golden ratio, finding the optimum ratio of the circular materials that we're using, because we definitely need to achieve a durable construction at the very end. So it needs to be durable and it needs to incorporate recircular material. So there should be a really optimum in that sense, and we call that golden ratio. So we're not after increasing, of course, it's always very good to increase the recyclable content in the product, but then it should be really strong enough, because we don't want like fast fashion. We don't want like the garment will be really not usable like in a year or so. We need durable materials. So that's why we called it like golden ratio, and we're doing it to increase the wearing performance. And to really educate better, share our knowledge, we incorporated the life cycle assessment tool. And we are now, for more than 3 years, really calculating the life cycle of each and every product that we produce in the system, from the cradle, starting from the raw material till our gate. And then we give data to the customers via QR codes, like the global warming potential, water usage, energy usage, eutrophication, abiotic depletion, I mean, different environmental impact categories that we can share. And this is also through because as stated in goal 12 for sustainable future, while we're also responsibly producing the goods, there also needs to be responsible consumption side, and this LCA data communication also supports that goal as well. And the last but not least, we are also about to launch a program called Orta Prime, because for the recovery, we now see local production, local and small design production. And we are now working on this platform, helping to give designers and even the design students to freedom to order Orta's most sustainable premium quality fabrics with a low minimum order of, let's say, just for 5 meters if they want. It's our commitment to bring denim equality to all, and will be live very soon. Thank you.
And as we talk about the digitalization of fashion and how fast and rapid things are moving, or for everyone, do you think there are any risks associated with larger companies adopting, such fast digital technologies? Or specifically, what does this mean for the future of some jobs in the fashion industry that might not be needed anymore as fashion continues to move, or to innovate itself, I would say?
What's interesting when you look at that, and we get that question a lot, right, as a real concern, it's got 2 parts to it. One, I think, is that for so long, in so many ways, fashion industry, even though it's so massive and there are so many steps across the globe and it connects so many people, it's still doing things the way my great grandfather did in 1896. Good old pen and paper, right? Or maybe an Excel spreadsheet, which is on a desk right now because of COVID that you can't get into. So that has created real challenges for businesses and how they operate, especially for the multi-billion-dollar corporations. And I think when it comes to digitization, they have these dreams of being end to end, right? From farm to finished good to end of life. And we have these dreams of some of them, you know, Zara and other amazing organizations saying we're going to be 100% sustainable by 2025. That's great, right? You're putting a stake in the ground, you've got a goal, and it is a bold, ambitious goal. Even if they only get 1% of the way there, that's still okay, because that still has a massive positive impact. And what I say is that goal, it's going to take time to get there. And so the idea of jobs completely going away or everything be automatic and robotic and automated and digitized, we've got a long way to get there. Let's start today, right? And that's where we have tackled waste and dead stock, because that to us was an obvious place for businesses to start digitizing the chain, to start understanding what they've got in waste and why they have it, so that they can monetize it, survive today, and minimize it and thrive tomorrow. And then you can start to go up and down the chain. But in terms of people being out of jobs, the fashion industry, as you know, we were just talking about, relies so much on the touch and the feel and the human element and construction of the beautiful garment. And I don't think that that's going away. And while some of these tools like ours may help you do things quicker and faster and automate it, it just means it's going to save you and your job time and resources to free you up to do things that provide even more value to the organization. Oh, and by the way, while you do that, you can also show your boss or your C-suites things like the amount of water, toxins, energy, and dollars you've saved by leveraging these kinds of solutions. So to me, that becomes a win-win-win.
And so I guess my next question, speaking of, you know, changing landscapes, my next question is for Chrissy. As an activist and an influencer, how has the way that you view your platform changed since, you know, the pandemic with the social uprisings this summer? And specifically, have you noticed a shift in the online community's desires to address sustainability and, you know, these social global issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think calling myself an activist is a little generous, but, you know, I definitely think that I've felt more empowered to speak out, of course, over these last several months. And even in regards to COVID, I think that there had to have been a shift, because so much of, I think, the fashion industry obviously can feel a little frivolous in a time where people are losing their jobs, don't know how to, you know, how they're going to feed their families and XYZ. And like, here I am getting, you know, PR mailers or things like that. And so I do think there had to be a shift in sensitivity and tact of like how you talk about your life when you know, are privileged in a sense, but there's other people out there who are hurting, but you still want to share your life, you still want to uplift others. And then of course, like with the social justice uprising, like, you know, I felt very empowered to speak out. And I think I've always personally felt a sense of responsibility, but for so long, I spent my career at, you know, a major fashion magazine. And not to say that I couldn't speak out then, but I was also representing the brand. So I was definitely more discreet in the way that I gave feedback to brands about the lack of diversity that I saw in their lookbooks or in their runway shows. And now, you know, I can be a little bit more outspoken, and like part of my job is really to like help educate my followers, like where people are sort of falling short and like where there's performative allyship and things of that nature. But I'm also very fortunate because I do think that I've built a community that really cares about both social and environmental issues. Whenever I do Q&As on my account, I always get questions about, you know, where's the best place to go secondhand shopping? Like, how can I, you know, find these things if I can't afford to go to, you know, Louis Vuitton or Dior or whatever, and just about what are sustainable brands that we should know about, clean beauty, how to make tips on like how to actually make my wardrobe go farther. So I think that, you know, it's been really nice to see that people care about that, because it's also something that's important to me.
It definitely has accelerated. I think you're right with what's going on. And it is so important. I mean, obviously here it's great to be on a panel with women in this space, right? But diversity, it isn't just gender. It isn't just race. It's also ageism, right? Sexual orientation. I mean, you name it, abilities. And the more you bring that to your organization, and it's very much, it's obviously we're a women-led technology company, and we have all of those other facets of diversity on our management team, because it brings with it such an opportunity to think differently and to be able to innovate in a space that is right now so ripe for that. One of the things that we've been so proud of to see going on, we do have a non-for-profit arm, although we are for-profit with a social mission. It's nice to see organizations like ours, and there are a lot of others out there that also have a non-for-profit arm that they work with regularly, pledge a portion of their proceeds to, and that obviously elevates and supports everyone. And then we also have been doing a lot of work with government. We did just publish a white paper with New York City government and some enterprise corporations under the name the New York Circular City Initiative. And there we have started changing the laws in New York City to show what it would look like for such a leading, powerful city in fashion, right? To be able to go circular in the coming years. What are the changes that need to happen in the laws, but not just slapping millions of dollars of liability on the books for these organizations? What are the solutions like ours that can help businesses do better and also offset that coming legal liability? And I'm excited to see, I think the momentum around these issues, political, social, economic, are only growing and only going to bring a better industry and a more powerful industry going forward.
Love that. Yeah, because obviously we've seen like some brands who have taken it upon themselves to start, a circular business model. And I think it's been really cool to see brands that are innovating themselves in that way.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and so would you say that I guess the role of can influencing, specifically on Instagram, I'm talking about, can it never go back to the way it was before of just pretty pictures and nice feeds, especially because people seem to want more. They want the sustainability, they want the activism. We saw the rise of the Instagram PowerPoints. People want the Black Lives Matter cards in the bios. Do you think that, like, what is the future of, sustainable influencing and social influencing, and can it ever go back to where it was?
I mean, from the sustainable aspect, I always, have this conversation with friends of mine in the industry about how obviously like wanting to be sustainable and being an influencer kind of feel like they're at odds with one another, because part of the job is promoting product and more product. And, but I think that for me, I don't see these things as always being black and white. Like, I'm not going through my closet and like pulling out every piece just because it's not from a sustainable brand and like getting rid of it. I think that I really try personally like to live by example, and I show that like I love my clothes, and the clothes I love, I rewear them over and over and over. Like, I'm not the kind of person that feels like, oh, every time I post on Instagram I have to have a brand new outfit. And I try to call out to my followers when I'm wearing these boots that I've been wearing for the last 2 seasons. I love them. This is how I styled them then. This is how I'm styling them now. And I think that's really important. I'm also very vocal about not shopping fast fashion, but obviously realize that that is not an option for some. So I think that it's also inspiring people to make better choices when they are buying fast fashion. Look for pieces that you think are really gonna go the distance and you're gonna wear for a long time. Don't look at it as like a disposable wardrobe. But I think overall for influencers and what is going on, of course, there's still going to be a lot of people that see Instagram as an escape. They just want to see the pretty pictures, and there are influencers to follow for that. Like, there are influencers who literally do not care about what is going on, whether it's COVID, whether it's the environment, whether it's social justice. But I do think that the influencers who are going to really go the distance and have long careers are the ones who actually care about these issues. And especially in the work that I'm doing with my consulting company, and when I work with brands, we are really trying to drive home that, like, if you are deciding that you want to be an anti-racist brand and this diversity is something that you are now building in as the backbone of your company, you cannot work with influencers who don't care about these things. It just does not work. So you really have to be auditing the partnerships that you have with, and vice versa on the influencer side. When we work with them, like, we tell them, you have to be mindful of what brands are doing. I think, I really think that we have all been brainwashed to feel very apathetic. Our vote doesn't count. What I say doesn't matter, and all of these things. And it's just not true. Like, politics, race, the environment, these are things that affect our everyday lives. And this is something that we should feel comfortable talking about because it affects our lives. So I don't understand this, like, oh, it's a risk to talk about politics. I don't want to talk about this, or, I don't know what's going on in the environment. Like, we have to care about these things.
What's interesting, though, I think there's a common assumption that just because of the S word sustainability, right, that it automatically means it's going to cost you more money and it's not going to have access. And what's interesting about some of the business models that we've mentioned around recycle, reuse, repair, right, rental, is that it does open up access where you can still contribute, be a part of the sustainable community, still get access maybe to some high quality goods you might not otherwise be able to afford, while also being sustainable. And so when you think about it that way, right, you can satisfy that want to be on Instagram and change your outfit, but doing it with recycled, reused, repaired clothing, and it keeps it all in circulation while you're still able to satisfy if that is your consumer need. I agree, at the end of the day, we want overall rates of consumption to go down. We want the volume and rate of textile production to go down. But by the longer we keep these things in use, that is automatically going to happen. And we can still love fashion because fashion very much speaks to us, right? It is political and social and economic. And just think and know that you can contribute and be a part of the solution. And with very little acts, like even buying one less t-shirt or reusing or recycling one shirt, you've just saved 700 gallons of water, which is enough clean water for one person to drink around the world for 3 years. So that little act, when we aggregate it all together, has a massive impact. So don't feel unempowered. You have the power.
And kind of, in that same conversation, I think you spoke about this a little bit, but just to, go deeper into it, in the future, what are the barriers that are still there when it comes to encouraging companies to lessen their textile waste?
Yeah, I mean, sure. You're talking to multi-billion-dollar corporations whose business and profitability depends upon making things, right? And so I hear a lot of people saying the idea of the fashion industry at its core is unsustainable because of that. And I don't necessarily agree. I mean, unless we're all going to go naked, which, may be a solution, but we're going to still need clothes, and the human population is still growing. We're going to need clothes to cover our bodies. Just how we consume them, how we make them, how long we use them, right? Those relationships and business practices are what's shifting and changing. And that's why it was so cool to see, some really cool partnerships coming out with Rent the Runway and ThredUp, right? And ThredUp now being in JCPenney and Macy's. The fact that these multi-billion-dollar retailers and brands recognize the value of these new kinds of models and are wanting to be a part of it, it actually is beneficial for everyone. It gives them more access to profitability, right? They want a piece of the pie. They want to get in on the game and make money off of it while also doing good. And by getting involved in recycle, reuse, repurpose, these large brands and retailers that we work with, their bottom lines are improving up to 15% or more. Their top lines are improving by like 3 times the conversion rate in their online direct to consumer business because they're talking about sustainability. And so they're making and saving more money, right? So it does unlock value and profitability while also being sustainable. And I think Kering did a really good job publishing their ESG reports, where you can see literally a blueprint for how a big business can adopt this and improve their bottom and top lines. So it is, and while you do that, they have more money that they can put into other parts of their supply chain, right? To be good actors and do good work while still increasing their relationship with their end consumers. So, I think the value and the opportunity there is massive and only growing in the coming years.
I have my final question, which also kind of comes in two parts. And it's just mostly like an overall wrap up of everything that we spoke about. What are some steps that the industry can take like right now to lessen the impact that the pandemic is, probably going to have on its future goals and sustainable milestones? And then separate from that, overall in general, what are some things that you all would like to see come out of 2021?
Today, more and more people are really raising concerns. We have talked about it, where things are produced, including denim in our case. And everyone up and down in the supply chain of denim is really being challenged to be more open and transparent and accountable in that sense. And it's really is an awakening for our industry to put people and the planet before profit. I totally agree, Stephanie. There should be profit. I mean, we all are not nonprofit organizations, but really that mindset, putting people and planet before profit, really, really helps the system goes like in a more healthier way. Of course, this openness will not like happen like all of a sudden. The Fashion Revolution's Transparency Index, like 2020 says, brands continue to publish their policies more than they publish how they're going to implement what they're going to do, like to reduce the impact on the environment. Like there are like information dumping really is a big issue right now, big problem. And we realize that climate crisis is an increasingly important issue. But more transparency is definitely needed on what brands are doing to reduce the impact. Like 78% of major brands publish a company policy on their websites, like on energy use, like on like carbon dioxide emissions. But however, only 16% of the brands are sharing science-based targets. And this is really, really very striking to me. We think transparency as an ecosystem with like 3 T's, transparency, traceability, and touch, human touch, which is really important. And as a next step, transparency is not only like putting a label on the garment saying that, okay, this is ethically sourced or like sustainably made, or like just sharing one factory on your website that you say that you're sourcing from like this factory only. You should be really like, we should really discuss the next step of transparency. And we definitely believe life cycle assessment is the next step of transparency, because you can share data, you can compare data, and you can set targets for the future to reduce your like overall impact in that sense. We've started to put our fiber origin in the QR codes of the single fabrics that we're producing right now. And recently, in terms of traceability, we are now sharing our supplier map on our website, and we are the first B2B platform in that sense. Like major brands have started to share their supplier maps, and we're now also sharing on our ortablue.org platform our supplier map. And actually, we linked it with the Silk Road, the city where we produce, where our factory is in the central Anatolia. And for like 4,000 years, that city was the hub of like the trading and also changing ideas, changing culture. And using that, Orta is also as a hub, like to really share ideas, exchange ideas, co-create together, and like having really good materials in the system and giving like sustainably, responsibly produced production to the system. And as the last T I said, human touch, it is really important. Really how the clothes are being made and who is making them. We are continually engaging our team members of Orta to contribute Orta's sustainability journey, and we are sharing their stories about how they're doing it, like the factory, our headquarters, and now people who are working from their homes. And they will be sharing the whole stories that they have. For Orta, transparency leads to accountability, and I think it's very, very important, because accountability then leads to transformation to a handprinting, contributing a net positive future for people and planet. And our transparency pledge is Orta is always open, and we definitely believe that this is the right thing to really create a net positive future in the upcoming years as a fashion industry.
I think for us, for the coming 2021, I'm really excited to see the new innovations in technology and the new business models that come out based on what people are seeing going on in the world and what needs to happen to solve these challenges and problems while unlocking value and profitability, which we've talked about. Some of the particular technologies I think are really exciting. Some of the work that's going on in AR, VR, which we've touched on, being able to visually see and touch things in different dimensions and then integrate that information into your CAD software so you can design right away without necessarily the need to touch and feel right away. Bringing down time and resources is very cool. I think blockchain is a game changer for supply chain and sustainability. The ability to know the history and the story of where something came from, what it's made of, where it goes to, and for everyone who touches that good to be unlock value and see that story is very powerful. And I think that the work that the United Nations and the SDGs that's going on are just incredible, because they came out, right? And there's these sets of standards that almost create a common language for sustainability, because it is such a complex word that means so many things to so many people. We have a way now relating it to the SDGs that we can talk about it. There's been a lot of great work going on, and we're really excited with the technology that we're building and we're seeing others work on, where you then can actually implement the SDGs. And for these businesses who don't know how to measure this stuff or talk about this stuff, to actually be able to get a report or an information with integrity to the data and how it was collected, so that they can talk about the good stuff that they're doing, and they can to automatically tell you how they've improved on SDG 6 clean water, right, globally. I think that will only fuel from the top down, but obviously the top down is just a piece of it. We need to continue to get the bottom up, because at the end of the day, these brands and retailers are going to be selling product to those with the biggest purchasing power, and that is the millennials and Gen Zs, and they've got the power, right? The biggest purchasing power globally now. So you can act with your dollars. And sometimes I know some people are confused about a brand and what it means and if it is sustainable or good. A couple little just quick high level tips. One is there's a great website, friends of ours, called Good On You, where you can type literally a brand name in and know in real time on a high level a scorecard of how they're doing. And you can read that and say, does that comport and fit with my values as an individual? Do I feel good making this purchase and giving my dollars to that brand or not? And then if you're ever not sure too, just read the label, right? It's like the raw foods movement and the food we put into our body. If you read the label and it's got some confusing stuff and you don't know what it's made of, it's probably not something you want touching you or your children's skin, right? And I'm definitely doing what I'm doing for my children. I want them to have clean water to drink, clothes that aren't toxic to wear, a planet to live on. And I know together we can change the world.
And, my hope for 2021 and beyond is just for people to become more conscious consumers, follows, likes, dollars to people equals power. And so who are you giving power to? Like, we have to think about the values of companies and other influencers that we follow. And I think it's really important that we consider the impact that these companies have and, continue to make smart decisions.
And that was my final question. And that's also all we have time for today. So I would like to thank the Conscious Fashion Campaign and the United Nations Office of Partnerships.